Welcome to another episode of Curious Collections from the Benson Memorial Library. At this time of year, many of us find ourselves in the medicine aisle of our local grocery store or going to the drugstore looking for over-the-counter remedies for our various colds and flu symptoms. Interestingly enough, Titusville has a part in the history of several over-the-counter medicines. So today we're going to roll back the clock to the early days of oil and look at medicine here in the Oil Valley. The concept of using oil for medicinal purposes isn't a new one. The Seneca Indians who lived in the Oil Valley hundreds of years ago actually used the oil that they skimmed off of Oil Creek for medicinal purposes and as an insect repellent. Sometime later in the 1840s, a gentleman named Samuel Kyer from Pittsburgh found that petroleum oil was contaminating his father's salt drilling wells in Tarentum, PA, and wondered if he could use it for possible business gain. So he ended up bottling the petroleum and selling it as a medicinal cure-all that could be taken either internally or externally. He also found that there was a waxy buildup from the petroleum that would end up on the drilling rigs that he tried to sell as a petroleum butter, but had little commercial success. Interestingly enough, after Colonel Drake struck oil here in Titusville in 1859, a chemist from New York named Robert Chesebro came to Titusville to see what the possibilities for oil might be, and he took some of this rod wax petroleum jelly home to his laboratory in Brooklyn. In 1872, after a great deal of experimenting, he took out a patent for what he came up with, which you might recognize, Vaseline. Of course, oil wasn't the only hot product in medicine in the 1800s. Electricity was also capturing the imagination of inventors and physicians for its potential medicinal purposes, and Titusville professionals were no exception. A Dr. T.F. Frank, who practiced in town in the 1870s, advertised magnetic baths that he said could transmit medicine into the body through the skin. And a Dr. E.B. Rhodes, whose office was at 47 West Pine Street, which is now Central Avenue in Scheide Park, roughly across the street from Henderson's Electric, took out an ad in the November 17, 1879 Herald that offered home electric treatments via battery to cure a number of ailments, including rheumatism, gout, headaches, asthma, kidney and liver disease, diseases peculiar to females, ulcers, cancer, tumors, and even hemorrhoids. He listed John Ferdig, J.L. McKinney, William Barnsdall, and Mr. Bloss, owner of the Titusville Herald, all as former patients. Now today, galvanic baths, or water baths, which are charged with mild currents of electricity, are used as an alternative health remedy for arthritis and joint issues. Now, if the use of oil or electricity as medicine seems a bit far-fetched, consider that the late 18 and early 1900s were the heyday of snake oil salesmen and patent medicine. Snake oil was originally brought to America by Chinese immigrants in the 1800s who used it for their sore muscles. It was made from the oil of the Chinese water snake, which is actually very rich in omega-3 acids that help reduce inflammation. The idea was capitalized on by a Westerner named Clark Stanley, who claimed to have learned the art of making snake oil from Native Americans, and then marketed his Clark Stanley's snake oil liniment, which was supposedly made from American rattlesnakes. As it happens, the liniment was primarily mineral oil with no snake in it at all. And now we think of the term snake oil as something essentially synonymous with fraud. Now, snake oil falls into a larger category of remedies referred to as patent medicines, and these were things that you could purchase over the counter at the drugstore without a prescription. Unlike today, these medicines were not at all regulated, and there were no requirements for listing ingredients on the labels. This changed with the Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906 and later the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act of 1938. But prior to that, companies could put virtually anything in their patent medicines and could make extraordinary claims about their healing powers in advertising without penalty. These medicines were heavily marketed. In one 4-page edition of the Titusville Herald in 1901, there were 28 separate patent medicine ads. One enterprising company capitalized on both the popularity of electricity and patent medicine and came out with Dr. Thomas's eclectic oil and was said to cure colds, though its ingredients included turpentine, camphor oil, and eucalyptus, similar to Vicks Vapor Rub, just no electricity. Many patent medicines were heavily alcohol-based, and during the Prohibition era, many people turned to patent medicine to get their alcohol fix. Pabst, the makers of Pabst Blue Ribbon, even marketed a tonic at the time called Pabst Extract, which was advertised to pep up overworked wives. It also had a similar alcohol content to the Pabst Blue Ribbon beer of today. Besides alcohol, a number of patent medicines contain substances like morphine, cannabis, opium, and cocaine, along with various other fillers, all of which claim to cure a wide variety of ailments. Collier's magazine actually ran a series of articles in 1905 by muckraker Samuel Hopkins Adams entitled The Great American Fraud, which called out some of the worst offenders, two of which were Mrs. Winslow's Soothing Syrup and Peruna. Mrs. Winslow's Soothing Syrup was first marketed in 1849, and it was available for teething and colicky babies. The company claimed that this would allay pain, help with teething, regulate the children's bowel movements. Unfortunately, Soothing Syrup had a huge quantity of alcohol and morphine, and according to the FDA website, it may have caused coma, addiction, and death in infants at the time. As far as Peruna, the Collier's article reads as follows. Anyone wishing to make Peruna at home for home consumption may do so by mixing half a pint of cologne spirits, 190 proof, with a pint and a half of water, adding thereto a little cubes for flavor and a little burnt sugar for color. Another prime example of medical chicanery of the time was Hamlin's Wizard Oil. It was produced starting in 1861 by former magician John Austin Hamlin and contained somewhere between 50 and 70% alcohol, which was to be used either internally or externally. He claimed that it was for rheumatic pain and sore muscles, but had also been advertised as treating cancer, toothache, hydrophobia, diphtheria. Eventually, the company was sued in 1906 for false advertising and fined because of their claims that they said it could cure cancer. Now, Hamlin's Wizard Oil, along with several other patent medicines, were advertised at the time not only in newspapers, but by traveling medicine shows, which would roll into town on wagons and included entertainers, dancers, comedians, orators, and then they would sell the medicines from the wagon. Traveling medicine shows like the ones used to promote Hamlin's Wizard Oil also came to Titusville. The newspaper cites a number of times when a traveling show came to town called the Rolling Thunder Medicine Show. And in one instance in 1937, the manager of the show, Ross Dyer, was actually arrested on suspicion of murder when one older gentleman in town who had been ailing for some time purchased medicine from the show and died shortly afterwards. Later, Dyer was acquitted, but it does go to show you that there was some suspicion about patent medicines later into the 1900s. Now, not all patent medicines were bad, and some brands from the late 18 and early 1900s are still available and being marketed today. Dr. Fowler's extract of wild strawberry, which was originally trademarked in 1901, was very popular with people who were suffering from irritable bowel syndrome. And Fowler's brand digestive medicines are still available for purchase, although with a slightly different ingredient makeup. Also, Lydia Pinkham's vegetable compound, which was used by women to treat menopausal symptoms and menstrual cramps, which originally came out in 1873. The original recipe also had a 20% alcohol content, but herbal tablets and supplements based on the original recipe are still sold today and can be purchased on Amazon or Walmart.com. Some healthy patent medicines were made right here in Titusville. E.K. Thompson's drugstore in town ran from 1865 to 2009, and many residents will probably remember stopping at the snack bar in the building on Franklin Street. Prior to that, Thompson's was located at 8 and 10 Diamond Street in the building that used to stand next to Missy's Arcade Restaurant. Thompson's was also the headquarters of the Thompson Medical Company that made their own in-house remedies with lines like San Cura, which included a blood cleaner, a topical ointment, and a soap, and Borsoma, a kidney diuretic that said right on the package may cause urine to turn a bluish or greenish color. Bottles of E.K. Thompson's remedies are now in collections at the Smithsonian Institution of American History, as well as a medical museum in Canada. So if there are home remedies that you use or special over-the-counter things that you swear by, feel free to drop a comment below. In the meantime, stay well, stay healthy, and we'll see you in the stacks. Bye, everybody.